Bueno, buenos días a todos. En nombre del IS3, el Centro Internacional de Química Sostenible, ANI, la Agencia Nacional de Investigación e Innovación, y el Centro Coordinador del Convenio de Basilea, Centro Regional del Convenio de Estocolmo, quiero darle la bienvenida al segundo día de nuestra serie de webinarios con foco en Biosite Leasing. Antes de comenzar el webinario, hemos preparado unas preguntas para ustedes. Estas serán compartidas ahorita en Zoom y por favor tengan la libertad en responderlas. Lu, porfa, comparte las preguntas. Perfecto. La primera ¿es el chemical leasing parte de la química sostenible? ¿Qué piensan ustedes? Déjenle clic a sí o no. La segunda pregunta es, ¿cuáles son los principales beneficios de chemical leasing? Aumenta el uso eficiente de productos químicos, mejora el desempeño económico y ambiental de las empresas participantes o mejora el acceso a nuevos mercados. Estamos viendo qué fue lo que aprendieron el día de ayer. Y la tercera pregunta que les tenemos es, ¿qué tipo de socio se considera? ¿El usuario, el proveedor de equipos, responsables de política u otros? Les daré más o menos unos 30 segundos más y al final podremos ver sus respuestas. Lu, ¿podrías compartir con nosotros? Espero que hayan tenido suficiente tiempo, pero si Lu pudieras compartir con nosotros las respuestas de todos. Ah, qué bien. Pueden ver, creo que las respuestas de todos. Muy bien, el chemical leasing es parte de la química sostenible. Sí, perfecto. Y yo creo que, ¿cuáles son los principales beneficios de chemical leasing? Un 73% dijo aumenta el uso eficiente de productos químicos. Un 80% dijo mejora el desempeño económico y ambiental de las empresas. Y un 27% dijo mejora el acceso a nuevos mercados. Para la tercera pregunta, ¿qué tipo de socio se considera? Un 13% dijo el usuario, un 27% dijo el proveedor, un 20% dijo responsables de química y un 40% dijo otros. Si nos quieren decir o compartir con nosotros cuáles son los otros, por favor escríbanlo en el chat. Pero más sobre este tema, y van a hacer una pequeña introducción sobre los temas que se hablaron ayer. Va a hablar mi colega Jens y nuestro experto Reinhardt. Entonces, si por favor le podemos dar la bienvenida para aprender más, si ustedes tienen la razón con estas respuestas y más sobre el tema de ayer y de hoy. Por favor, Reinhardt y Jens.
Thank you very much, Juanita. I think Jens has prepared some kick-off discussions following what we have discussed yesterday. And I think that's where we want to start. And that's also where we want to have now really a dialogue and an exchange with you, because that's the way to really get the message over to all of you and create the opportunities for a later implementation.
Yes, and exactly what we want to do a little bit different today is give really more time for you guys to ask questions. If my sound drops during my presentation, Juanita or Reina, just immediately say that I'm gone, and I will try to switch to a different microphone. So let's take a look at yesterday. Unfortunately, the pictures are not very flattering, but I want to give you a quick overview of what we did yesterday. We started with a very warm welcome by Juanita, because we are very happy that you were all there. There were about 40 participants yesterday, so that's a really nice turnout, we thought. Then we went to some words of welcome by Gabriela Medina, the director of the Basel Center, and she mentioned that Uruguay is very committed to sound chemicals management, and they underlined this by signing a joint declaration on chemical leasing. And yeah, for that they are. This is the reason that we are working with Uruguay on this topic. Then Steffi Richter from the German Ministry of Environment mentioned that sustainable chemistry is a principle that should be established in politics, and countries around the world should benefit from this approach. We are a German institution, and yeah, on behalf of the German Ministry of Environment, we are doing this workshop. Then Paul Kreinig from the Austrian Ministry of Environment mentioned specifically a lot about chemical leasing. He mentioned that chemical leasing leads to more efficient chemicals and companies, and that Austria has supported this business model for a very long time. And it's important that countries should share their experiences. Then our director, my boss, Claudio Cincamani, mentioned that he talked about sustainable chemistry, and he mentioned that being greener, for example, recycling, is not enough to save the planet, and we really need to focus on sustainable business models, and chemical leasing is one important sustainable business model. Reinhard gave us a lot of input. The main message that I took here is that chemical leasing leads to a win-win situation for the users, the producers, and the environment. And finally, we had two examples. Anna gave us examples from Brazil. Chemical leasing was successful in many sectors, in hospitality and in the car industry, and it inspired companies to apply this business model. And Mauricio gave examples from Colombia, and he mentioned that they are not a company that produces chemicals anymore, but they are a company that gives chemical services, which is really the idea behind chemical leasing. So yesterday what we did was getting to know the audience a little bit better. We started with an icebreaker. Reinhard presented the theme of chemical leasing. We've explained what sustainable chemistry means, and we presented some case studies from Latin America. Some numbers: we had 45 to 60 participants throughout the meeting, and 13 people asked questions. I will go to there a little bit later. We asked you in which sectors you work. We had limited options. Many people are from the policy sector, some people from the food industry, most people from a different sector. And you mentioned water, education, the chemical industry in general, or consulting. Some people knew the chemical leasing concept, most of them didn't. Today, most of you will know about it a bit more, and we will learn more about it even. And what you want to learn is all kinds of things that are written in Spanish and I cannot translate, but I will move to the next, to the questions actually, because this is more important. Yeah, so you asked many questions and I tried to list them here. Many of them were already answered, or for many of them, the answer was, we will talk more about this tomorrow, but 3 questions I picked out that, that we can ask Reinhard now. We have 10 minutes to discuss some things that were left from yesterday. Juanita, I would like to ask you to read out the 3 questions, and then the translator will translate them for Reinhard.
Sí, perfecto, con mucho gusto, Jens. La primera pregunta es revertir el proceso de consumismo de la revolución industrial.
Yeah, I think this is more a statement than a question, but it is true. This is really a fundamental change of the current business, how it is done, because for a long time, the selling of volumes is what happens on the market. And the more you sell, the more you earn. This is the principle that all the salesmen around the world follow. And now with this chemical leasing that really focuses on the benefit of chemicals use, chemicals consumption, is in a way really a revolution. It's also a revolution of the collaboration between two partners, because it's no longer just one partner that is delivering material and the other is receiving the material, the chemical, and doing something, but it's a collaboration. It's a collaboration where the two partners really try to optimize a process and make the best out of the chemicals. And these two aspects are in a way, and this is true in the statement, a type of an industrial revolution, because it also changes completely the orientation of chemical suppliers. It's no longer now a target to bring chemicals on the market, it's to bring solutions on the markets, solution to the clients, solutions that combine knowledge with chemicals. And I think this is a revolution, and we see also the success in these cases, that it is a revolution with a good and promising perspective for the future. I think that would be my answer to the first question.
Great. The second question, Juanita.
Muchas gracias, Reinhard. La segunda pregunta para ti es, una de las premisas de Chemical Leasing es trabajar en sinergia, lo que implica un cambio de cabeza. ¿Cuánto llevó esto en vuestro país, en vuestros países?
Yeah, so we started with this approach in the year 22, 23, and we had some, let's say, innovative companies that understood the concept, started in 2004 with first pilot projects, and these pilot projects are running since that time. But as you can see, in a process of 20 years, some industrial sectors have been ready quite early. Some industrial sectors just needed time to change their thinking, to approach this new concept, to test it out. Still, we are on the path to bring it to some sectors that were skeptical at the beginning. And it is clear from the perspective of UNIDO, from the perspective of the participating companies and countries, that it's a revolution, and a revolution also in how business is done. And therefore, it took quite some time in some countries, but we see this as a long run, and we see that once it has started, more and more companies join. In some countries where we started this 10, 15 years ago, we see now chemical leasing as a mainstream in several industry sectors. And also, if you look on the international awards, so in the beginning, we had about 30 participating companies, and then it got more and more countries. And the last award, it was more than 100 companies that just sent in their application, opened their books, their data to show we have done this. So I think it is a long-lasting process, but those companies that are in stay in this process and stay in this business model.
Okay, thank you. And we go to the third and last question of this round. And Juanita, please read it out.
Reinhard, la tercera pregunta para ti es, ¿tienen experiencia cuando el usuario es una empresa pública?
Yes, there is experience, and we have also successful cases, for example, in wastewater treatment or drinking water treatment, which is typically done by public companies. But the public area is more complicated than a private industry. Why? Because in many cases, you have a competition, public procurement process that is defined. You have to invite several companies. You are forced sometimes by regulations to take the cheapest provider for the chemicals. And this type of public procurement needs to be changed. And we see now in some countries, in Europe, also in some developing countries, that this starts, but it's at the beginning in the public area, while it is used since 20 years in the private area.
Great. Okay. I will share 2 more slides, and then we can check if there are more questions already in the chat or in the Q&A in the Zoom before we move to the next part of the agenda. This is quite important because I forgot to mention it yesterday. One of the reasons why we are organizing this workshop is because we want to form a network, a specific network for South America or for Uruguay, where we want to bring together users, producers, and local experts in the field of biocides or other chemicals. So we are focusing a little bit on biocides this 2 days, but it can also be any other type of chemicals. Together, we want to identify promising areas in this field, for example, of disinfectants in kitchens or hospitals or the food or agro industry. And we would like to support using trainings and advisory services. So if you are interested, if you are a user or a producer of biocides or other chemicals, or if you are an expert, it can be from Uruguay, but I know that yesterday there were also some participants from Chile and maybe from other countries, from Brazil, of course. So if you are from South America, let's say, or from Uruguay, and you want to be part of this network, if you want to receive further support on chemical leasing, you can contact me. My email address is jens.krol@isc3.org. But you can also write your email address in the chat, or you can contact your contact person from Ani or from the Stockholm Basel Center, and we can see how we can work together. And I will remind you one more time at the end of the workshop for those questions. Now, this was my presentation. I don't know, Juanita, if there are any questions in the meantime.
Muchas gracias, Jens, por el resumen de todo lo que tratamos ayer. Si hay una pregunta y esta sería, ¿tienen alguna experiencia de implementación en laboratorios de ensayo? La pregunta es de Mónica Trías.
I didn't quite well understand the question. Do you have experience in which area it was?
De implementación en laboratorios de ensayo.
No, not really. In laboratories, this was never tested out, so this would be new. To my knowledge, we don't have cases of laboratories. We have cases of cleaning, coating, agriculture. We will come back to this, but never laboratories. So that would be new.
Mónica, si estás interesada en implementar esto en el laboratorio, como Jens estaba hablando, escríbenos un email, nos encantaría hablar contigo y es un tema que podemos discutir a ver si esto es posible o no. Por eso te invito a que le escribas a Jens, jens.kroll@is3.org, ORG, al final. Sí, muchas gracias. Si no hay más preguntas, podemos seguir con la agenda del día de hoy. Ahora el segundo punto del día de hoy es intercambio de experiencias internacionales y casos de estudios. Si se acuerdan, ayer tuvimos dos que fueron muy interesantes y hoy vamos a tener a Luis Humansor, él es el gerente de proyectos de Unido, que va a presentar sobre un caso. Por favor, den la bienvenida a Luis.
Hola, ¿me escuchan?
Sí, Luis, te escuchamos. Bienvenido.
Gracias. Ok, voy a share mi screen. Ahí van a disculpar que la tengo la presentación en inglés. Ok, bueno, pues muchas gracias. Mi nombre es Luis Omansor. Trabajo en la UNUDI. Estuve durante mucho tiempo trabajando con Reinhard en el desarrollo de proyectos para Chemical Leasing a nivel global. Y bueno, hoy quería contarles un par de casos que habíamos seleccionado para este entrenamiento. Sí, creo que solo tengo 15 minutos, entonces voy a tratar de ser lo más breve posible. Voy a poner ahorita mi eh, timer y empezamos. Bueno, como ustedes saben, y me imagino que lo explicaron el día de ayer, Chemical Leasing es un modelo de negocio circular que básicamente se basa en la teoría o en el concepto de eh, producto como servicio, en el que el objetivo, como me imagino que ayer lo aprendieron, es mejorar la eficiencia debido a que la gente paga por el beneficio que da el producto y no por las cantidades que se utilizan para esto, y entonces también de interés del proveedor disminuir la aplicación porque ya no está vendiendo las cantidades, sino que está vendiendo lo que se logra con eso. Como Reinhard les explicó, él nos apoya durante mucho tiempo en Chemical Leasing, y en el 2018 nosotros hicimos un pequeño análisis de las diferentes casos que habían aplicado a varios de nuestros premios, y descubrimos y sacamos como porcentajes que se pueden obtener de ahorros en los químicos, en la energía, en el uso de agua, en la reducción de empaques. Y bueno, por lo general, en promedio, se logra sustituir eh, o reducir el consumo de químicos entre un 30 y un 40% de estos en el uso de los químicos. Y habían casos especiales en el que se podía reducir hasta el 90%. Luego, en promedio, también el uso de la energía y la reducción de emisiones de dióxido de carbono se logra en un 30%, pero habían casos muy elevados hasta un 65%. Y luego en el consumo de agua, en promedio se reducía el 50%, pero habían unos casos en el uso de conveyors de las empresas embotelladoras que se lograron disminuir incluso porque se pasaba a un proceso seco de un 100%. Y bueno, los empaques hasta un 60%. Entonces ahora yo les voy a presentar dos casos. Uno es en el sector de servicios, en una lavandería de un hotel, y el otro es en un sector industrial que es para la limpieza de piezas mecánicas. Este hotel es muy bonito, se encuentra en Croacia. La verdad es que no he tenido la oportunidad de visitarlo, pero cuando ellos ganaron, creo que todos en la UNUDI queríamos ir a visitarlo y verlo por con nuestros propios ojos. Pues básicamente, como me imagino que les explicaron el día de ayer, el concepto, se deja de comprar, el hotel deja de comprar los detergentes y empieza a pagar por el servicio que se les presta, que es básicamente la ropa lavada. Entonces, en esencia, la unidad de pago en este caso fue el kilogramo de ropa lavada, el euros por kilogramos de ropa lavada, en vez de antes que utilizaban detergentes, los kilogramos de detergentes para el pago. Lo primero que se hizo fue sustituir los detergentes en polvo por detergentes líquidos que son igual de eficientes, pero que utilizan temperaturas más bajas, los cual permite tener ahorros energéticos, que luego les voy a enseñar. Y también hace que la dosificación se pueda automatizar, lo cual también lo vuelve más eficiente. Entonces, en este caso, estamos hablando no solo de un manejo mejor de las sustancias, pero también de una especie de modernización del proceso. Y por otro lado, también se instalaron un recuperador de agua para poder reutilizarla. El agua que venía de la ropa blanca, luego se podía reutilizar, y eso disminuye el consumo de agua, así como también utilizar el calor del secador para precalentar el agua, y eso nos permite reducir el consumo de energía. Entonces, al aplicar Chemical Leasing, ustedes pueden ver que hubo una disminución considerable en los químicos de casi la mitad. Y bueno, el consumo de agua también disminuyó de casi 14 litros por kilogramo de ropa a lavar al 2017, cuando se hizo a 4. Básicamente son 10 litros los que se lograron ahorrar por kilogramo. También se ajustó la temperatura en la que se hace el lavado, debido a que los detergentes que se utilizan son más eficientes a temperaturas más bajas, y se utilizaban a temperaturas de 40 grados en vez de 60 en un principio. Y bueno, las cosas que sí estaban un poco muy sucias siempre se mantenían a 80 grados. Y bueno, hubo una disminución de básicamente em, casi 1 kWh por kilogramo de ropa lavada, lo cual es bastante considerable cuando ya lo consideran un todo. Entonces, básicamente lo que se logró también, digamos, como modernizar que el proceso, y también esto tiene un impacto que me imagino ustedes, se habló ayer en el área de ocupación y seguridad ocupacional, lo cual permitía que las dosificaciones, ya las personas, las que trabajan en la lavandería, no están manipulando con sus manos los químicos, y eso pues mejora las condiciones. Y por otro lado, como la lavandería ya no se llevaba el agua hasta 60%, la temperatura en el verano en la lavandería era muy alta y no era muy cómodo para los trabajadores. Al disminuir la temperatura del lavado, se logró mejorar esta condición también. Y en cuanto a los beneficios económicos, pues ellos lograron tener ahorros de los costos. Se redujeron en casi 250.000 de euros, y eso ayudó a que los ingresos o las ganancias de la lavandería fueran un 10% más elevadas. Eh, y bueno, ya, ellos utilizaban, no, perdón, esa era otra. Y luego tenemos el Chemical Leasing para el sector industrial. Mm, Este es un caso muy famoso que se hizo en Serbia. el cual tuvo también muy buenos resultados y siempre fue, en un momento era como que uno de los casos que a nosotros nos gustaba bastante comunicar. Pues esta empresa lo que hacía era utilizar solventes para limpiar esas pequeñas piezas que se tienen. Entonces, ellos lograron trabajar y esto es ¿cómo se dice? Es un ejemplo interesante de cómo definieron ellos porque hay bastantes formas de definir la unidad de pago y ellos definieron horas de trabajo de las máquinas que limpian. Antes la limpieza se hacía de manera abierta, con solvente y todo, pero luego esta empresa adquirió, junto con el apoyo del proveedor, estas máquinas que hacían el proceso de manera cerrada. Y ya con solo cerrar el proceso se ahorraron mucho solvente, pero no solo eso, sino que también mejoraron las condiciones de seguridad y de higiene ocupacional, porque se prevenían las evaporaciones del solvente y al mismo tiempo tenía un sistema de conexión con el desecho que podía utilizarse en una unidad destiladora para recuperar el solvente y volver a utilizarlo. Entonces, si ustedes pueden ver antes del chemical leasing, se utilizaban básicamente eh, 75 litros por tonelada de producto, o sea, de las piezas metálicas, y al final del 2007 ya se utilizaba como menos del 10 litros, o sea que se redujo en casi un 90% el consumo del solvente. Y también se llegó a un acuerdo de que se recuperara el solvente en el sitio y luego el proveedor lo tomaba de regreso para darle el tratamiento adecuado. Con esto se logró reducir los desechos peligrosos, que serían los desechos del solvente, en un 95%. Y eso ha sido quizás uno de los mayores logros que se pueden tener con el modelo en este caso. También habían otros problemas que las máquinas anteriores no eran tan buenas y terminaban con partes corroídas debido a que no había un buen manejo de las sustancias y habían fugas del solvente. Y bueno, también debido a que las máquinas son más eficientes, esto ayudó a incrementar la eficiencia y la productividad de la empresa, porque ellos podían limpiar ¿cómo se dice? Más piezas, porque la estructura cabían más y eso disminuía los tiempos muertos durante la producción. También la empresa proveedora apoyó con entrenamientos a los trabajadores para poder utilizar los químicos de manera más eficiente. También al mismo tiempo los sistemas de limpieza fueron interconectados y de manera hermética para todavía disminuir más las emisiones. Y al mismo tiempo los trabajadores recibieron equipos de protección para las emisiones. Los costos de reducción de los solventes se redujeron en un 30% y los ahorros representaban como 100,000 euros al año. Entonces, como podemos ver, en práctica, Chemical Leasing nos apoya a reducir el consumo de energía, el consumo de agua, no solo lo de los químicos, sino que también promueve la innovación y buenas prácticas. Esto ayuda a mejorar en general la eficiencia de un proceso, no solo del manejo de los químicos. También como principio se tiene que buscar el reemplazo, si no se puede el reemplazo, ver cómo se pueden disminuir el uso de químicos peligrosos. También contribuye a disminuir los desechos, como lo vimos en el caso de los solventes. y también disminuye los efectos, los potenciales efectos negativos que se puede tener ambientalmente a la salud y a la seguridad de los trabajadores también. Y por último, también, como ya lo han dicho anteriormente, es un modelo de ganar-ganar y no solo se agrega valor, sino que también los ahorros ayudan a que las empresas y los procesos sean más competitivos. Esto también ayuda a mejorar o a que se perciban mejores ingresos y que las ganancias sean como que más notorias. Y por otro lado también se mejora la calidad debido a que hay un mayor control, se mejoran los procesos. Y bueno, esto incentiva a que los proveedores tengan responsabilidad extendida y que hayan incentivos para el reuso y el reciclado de químicos y otros recursos que se utilizan dentro de los procesos. Esa era mi intervención y bueno, agradezco la invitación al ICS3, a Reinhard y bueno, cualquier pregunta, yo estaría dispuesto y feliz de poder responder las dudas si hay. Gracias.
Muchas gracias, Luis, por tu presentación. Fue súper interesante los ejemplos que diste. Si tienen algunas preguntas para Luis, por favor, háganlas en la sección de preguntas y respuestas. Ahorita, Luis, no veo ninguna, pero si se dan en el día de hoy, te las podemos preguntar un poco más tarde. Ahorita el siguiente punto del día de hoy es una pausa de 10:15 a 10:20. Entonces, si quieren tomarse un café o ir y tomarse un mate, por favor, este es el tiempo para esto. Y nos estamos viendo a las 10:20. Bueno, les quiero dar las bienvenidas a todos ustedes otra vez. Ya son las 10:20 de la mañana. Espero que hayan tenido suficiente tiempo para tomar un café o un mate. Y ahora quiero continuar con el siguiente punto del día de hoy. Y quiero darle la bienvenida otra vez a Reinhard Joas, nuestro experto en Bioscience Leasing y Chemical Leasing. Él ahorita hablará sobre los pasos para la implementación. Reinhard, bienvenido.
Thank you very much, Juanita. Good morning to all that participate, or good afternoon to those that are in Europe. Maybe you can start the sharing of the presentation, because presentation is in Spanish, and so this will make understanding a bit easier. In this presentation, if you click on the first slide in the presentation mode, yeah, thank you. So I will first explain some key factors of success. Please click. And then I will go to 3 phases which we typically see in chemical leasing. So what are the key factors? First point is we need a process where the chemical has a certain function. If we have a process where the use and the consumption of the chemical is totally defined, then it will not work. What means if we have, for example, a chemical reaction with a certain given recipe, chemical leasing will not work. If we have norms that prescribe exactly how much chemicals need to be used, then it will not work. So what we need is, as a success factor, a process where a chemical has a function and where there are some possibilities for improvements. Then we need partners and at least a supplier and a user. and these partners should have trust and develop a good business relationship. As a third success factor, we can say we should be in a position to monitor the improvements. It's important that we see the process is becoming better. We can identify measures how to make the process better and to monitor it. Definitely it's good if we have a political framework like we do have in Uruguay, with support from the government, with support from the Ministry of the Environment, and also with support from ISC3 and GIZ, that will help companies to embark in these new business models. And last not least, it's very important that we have a supplier that has experiences about the process where the chemicals are consumed. If the supplier just has knowledge about the name of the chemical, the amount and the price, chemical leasing will not work with this supplier. If the supplier is interested what happens to his products and is interested in knowledge about the process, then this collaboration can work and then the process can be optimized. So these are the key factors, and these key factors are also important. Please click and click again. Next slide and next slide again. These factors are important when we select the right cases. Please click again. How do we select the right cases? I think we are here. You are here. You represent companies out of Uruguay. And so I think you are the candidates of first choice. As Jens has mentioned, send him an email if you want to embark into chemical leasing. If you want to test it out, then this is exactly what is the purpose of this webinar. Of course, we then need to get into contact with you. We will exchange, and certain companies can be selected. That means we will tell you in this pre-phase whether it can work in your company or not. Typically, it will work. I already realized that we have some very innovative and interesting new cases like laboratories. So we will check and you get feedback whether it is feasible or it is not feasible. This is the introductory or preparatory phase. It will be very quick. And besides this webinar, as you might have received now all the messages, if you know from your business contacts, from your friends, some companies that might fit, just tell them and communicate this is a new opportunity, and then these companies can communicate and exchange with us, and we will select and identify the best cases for Uruguay. So this is what happens in this preparatory phase, and the webinar is a key cornerstone of this phase. If you click, I'm going now to the implementation phase, phase 2, and there you see on the next slide, if you click, click again, and click again, these are 12 steps. Please click again. 12 steps for the implementation, and I will explain them briefly. I will explain them briefly and start in the with the first step. And the first step is, please click next. Next, Diana. Yes, again and again. Oh, it seems some problem. Please click again or go to next slide. Just go to next slide. I think there is a small problem with the presentation. Yes. Now here we are. The point is, when you are interested, you will receive material. What is chemical leasing? Please click again. You will receive explanations, what is chemical leasing, how it works. So you will receive all these presentations that you have seen and will see today, but also further materials. So you have a solid basis then to do it. This is the first step. So also your management, your CEOs, everybody knows how this works. And then the next step is that we design for you, please click, an implementation plan. And this implementation plan is company specific, and we exactly tell you how to select the processes, what to do in order to have a plan, to have a timeline, to have involved persons, how this works. This you will get from us. It helps you to start chemical leasing in an organized and structured way. And based on this implementation plan, in the step 3, next slide, please. Next slide. We will identify the processes. The processes where we should focus and where we should start the optimization and where we can identify the benefit which the chemical play. So we select these processes together with you, because you know your processes, you know then the concept, but we as a team from ISC3 give you support to find the right processes. We share you the experiences that exist on a worldwide basis. And then the next step, this is mainly a step inside your company. We need an internal team, a team that is that knows the processes that comes from the production unit, but also typically we can have in the team someone from the finance department or from the purchasing department, from the quality control department. This depends a little bit on the size of your company, and it depends on the size of the project. If it is a small project, if it is a small process, this can be just a group of 2 or 3 people. If, like Anna told you yesterday, we have a company like Renault, a car manufacturer, that is optimizing the painting, then it can be a group of 7, 8 people internally that that participate in this exercise and that are responsible for the various modifications, like the accounting, like the process, like the financial issues, like the quality issues. But again, the message is we will help you and set up together with you this internal group. Step 5, if you go to the next slide, is we will help you to identify appropriate cooperation partners. So if you are a user of chemicals, we will identify together with you a competent supplier. If you're a supplier, we will check with you which are the right clients to apply the business model. As you have learned and seen, it's always a question of user and supplier. And typically we start in the implementation with one partner and then try to find an appropriate other one. Already I found from the international chemical suppliers, several companies that are really interested to start in Uruguay with this project. And so in case you have now some interest in the project, you approach ISC3, Jens, and say, I would test it out, then we would try to find first your existing supplier to see whether he is able to follow the concept. Or we could also identify other suppliers that have already experiences and test it out with you. This depends on the individual case. And if you click on the next slides, then typically it is in step 6 that we bring together the partners and identify a broader team. Yeah, this is now the team that consists of experts, of the user of the chemicals and of the suppliers. Again, in some small cases, like what Luis presented for a hotel, this can be 2 guys from the hotel and 1 guy from the supplier. So it's a team of 3, a very tiny team, but efficient and highly professional, optimizing the process. In some other areas, like when we are talking about powder coating of big electrical equipments, or if we are talking about use of insecticides in large agricultural plants, it might be a team of 8 or 10 persons. This depends on the case, but you will receive from us advice what is the right number and size of the team. Then in step 7, please click again. In step 7, we collect the relevant data that are necessary to define a baseline, and that includes the key economic aspects, the key environmental aspects, and the key social aspects. So we collect the relevant data and put this data together in the next step to define where is the baseline, and to define also how is your profile currently related to the use of chemicals. In the next, you see this as well. And there we have some templates, some Excel files to help you to check your existing consumption, and also to give you some benchmarks, what can be done to optimize your processes. This is then the key work in step 8. Next slide, please. Where we discuss with the expert group from the supplier and the user what to do, how to optimize the processes. It can be a substitution, it can be change of process conditions. In many cases, it's an increasing of measurements. Then you have more detailed knowledge what's going on in your process, and then you can add chemicals in a more targeted way. There are several engineering options how this should take place. What is the input from us, from our side? We have benchmarks. We have more than 200 cases investigated around the world, so we can give you knowledge what others have done. And we can give you methodology how to identify the weaknesses of your existing process together with the supplier, and what is possible to optimize your process. If you click, you see what is important is to include here the knowledge of the provider, to include also international well-known additional knowledge, and this is then also a link to the presentation of Antje that comes later, also to elaborate solutions that follow the criteria for sustainability, to develop your process in the sense that it's really sustainable. And on the next slide, you see this is that we, please next slide, we there have this circle what shows you that the improvements are sustainable, and how this can be done in order to check the costs, to check what are the benefits for the consumption and for the environment and for the health of your workers, and how significant is the improvement that this is really sustainable and long lasting for you to improve your business. And then in step 10, we define the final unit of payment, which will go now for the future performance of the process. So as it has been explained in the various case studies, these unit of payment will be there in order to be a core element of the contract, and which makes sure that the interest of both sides is directed to the reduction. And in step 11, we will draw up a chemical leasing case. Please click. A chemical leasing contract where all these elements are addressed. For these contracts, we have core elements, we have critical aspects which need to be adjusted for each individual case, and we have various other aspects. And again, the message is, you do not start from scratch. There are lots of experience available, templates for contracts available, and we can support you in case you have been selected or applied as a case study from Uruguay, that you can profit from the existing experience. Sometimes these contractual aspects start already a bit earlier. Normally, it's my recommendation to first have a type of a shake hand agreement to start this process optimization, and step by step develop the final contract. But this depends a bit on the case. I just tried to highlight what are the key elements in this implementation phase, and for sure we are flexible depending on your needs about the timely order of these elements, but they are all important, and they are all proven that they work, and that's the way how implementation is done. There is a final last step, and this is train the staff of the company on the new business model. You see it here. And again, there are some training materials, but this is essential because in many cases we are talking about humans that are important for the process, that are important for the optimization, and that might also be the ones that have done some mistakes so far. And it's really important to highlight, it's not the story to blame anybody that in the past the process was not optimum. It's the new story, the looking into the future and the common approach how to improve. From my practical experience, I arrived several times at companies, and companies told me, oh, an interesting business model, chemical leasing, but not for us because we are already perfect. And I would say in most cases, nobody is perfect. There is always some possibility to improve. And let's check whether this possibility to improve is sufficient to start a chemical leasing case. And sometimes I also had the experience to talk very personal and very practical, that the production manager told me, come on, I'm doing this process for 20 years. I know every detail. I don't need a supplier to enter into my factory and tell me what I need to do with the process. And you already know what would be the answer. The answer is yes, you are an excellent production manager, but you know just the production from your perspective. You don't know it from the perspective of a chemical manufacturer or a chemical supplier. The chemical manufacturer might have additional knowledge about a stabilizing chemical, about a small modification in the chemical properties, which you never have because you are not a chemist or a chemical company representative. So if you collaborate with this person, even after 20 years running a process, you will see there are some important improvements. And this is what we experienced all around the world. There is a tendency that people say our process is perfect, but when you discuss it from various perspectives, then you see there is real potential to improve. If you click and click again, and click again. And click again. Then you see what I'm now saying. We are coming to the phase 3. What is the monitoring phase? Please click again. And this is important because you need to monitor several times to see the improvements and see what is working. And you need to make sure that the quality of the product remains. You are not reducing the chemicals and arriving with less quality of your products. Louis has spoken about the cleaning. So if the metal pieces would not be clean enough, then the whole business model would not work. If the laundry is not working and the t-shirts are dirty after the washing because there is too little amount of washing powder or detergents, then it will not work. Nobody will accept it. So monitoring is essential for the quality of the product and for the reduction of the chemicals. And this monitoring needs to be done within the working groups that is typically established. But at the end, it is also something what is, of course, interesting then for the government or for us as ISC3 to say, look, this is really a showcase. This is a case study. This is something interesting like a lighthouse, and other companies should be motivated to go in the same direction. So, of course, we would like if there is a certain type of publication of this success. Also, the International Chemical Leasing Award stimulates a publication of the results. But key point is, first of all, it's confidential. It's your result. And we will respect your confidentiality. But of course, we would be happy if we can share something. I will not go through all the details of the coming slides. I just will ask Diana to click a few times until we arrive at barriers and challenges for implementation, because I try to keep this presentation short. You will have the slides in any case, and have sufficient time for discussion with you for answering your comments. Sorry, Diana, I know it's a nightmare for you because I'm so quick with these slides, which you have nicely translated, but they are not lost. They will stay with the participants. Here we are, and here and on the next slide, that's where I want to start. So what are the barriers and what are the challenges which we need to take care? First, there is this question about confidentiality on the left-hand side. I already mentioned it. We are talking about know-how. We are talking about exchange of know-how. We are talking about improved competitiveness. Therefore, confidentiality is a must. And typically, the first thing that is signed is a confidentiality agreement. We have templates, and in these templates, it's very clearly said what is allowed and what is not allowed. And these confidentiality agreements give safety, security, and a good feeling to both partners. Therefore, it's very important that this is really kept through the whole process, and there is only a publication of results if you as a company agree explicitly on this. There is a second key challenge, and this is, I wrote investments and fair allocation of benefits. This process optimization is not working without any efforts. So you need to do some investments. Investments in the sense of brains, thinking, discussing about improvements, sometimes also financial investments. This is not typical big investments, but it might be an additional measurement equipment. I have many cases where people were measuring once a day parameters of the process. And then we started to invest a few $100 to have a continuous measurement and continuous process parameters. And with continuous process parameters, we could dose much more efficient the chemicals. This was a key aspect to improve the processes. So you invest 200-300 euros for continuous measurement devices and you get significant benefits. Sometimes it's a little bit more of investment, but it's not the huge investments. It's more the knowledge and the brains and the exchange and some small investments that makes a difference. As Luis has explained, reduce the temperature, change from powder to liquid detergents and things like that. And then the question is, who should benefit from the improved process? How the added value can be shared. At the end, this is a negotiation between the supplier and the user. And we as ISC3 or UNID or international organizations need to step out of this discussion because it's your economies. But we have developed some guidance and some ideas how to enable a fair sharing of the benefits. Because if you have a fair sharing of benefits, this model will last longer because then both partners are interested. If one partner tries to get all the benefits, all the added value, it will not be so interesting for the other partner. So it should be fair and both partners should have, or all partners should have the benefits. And we have some guidance on this, also some examples how this can be done. Third aspect, and this is also very important, and I can repeat it again and again, the quality of the product needs to be remained. Even it should be better, but in no case worse than the original quality. We need to have clear rules for liability, for guarantee. For this, we have templates, we have contracts, we have experiences. In many discussions, telling you out of the practice, this is something where companies are quite nervous in the beginning. But we had only one case where we had a problem here in more than 200 cases worldwide. Once a collaboration is established, typically this problem disappears. You need to take care. It's good if you are accompanied by a consultant or an external organization that has a role of a moderator sometimes, but basically it's just important that you take care that the quality is ensured and don't change anything in the process which might reduce the quality. This is, if this is followed, then it should be a success story. Now, on the next slide, some aspects where chemical leasing is difficult or where it does not work. I already said, if there are norms that prescribe the chemical consumption, I wouldn't go for it, because then you would offend the norm, you would not fulfill the requirements of the norm if you reduce your chemical consumption, and then you cannot place your product on the market. And we have made several experiences. If there are norms need to be changed before chemical leasing can be applied. The same is true for given recipes. So to say in the pharmaceutical industry, sometimes there is a very clear definition, a recipe, how a medicine should look like at the end. And so it's not possible to change any parameter in the process for this medicine. Therefore, chemical leasing will not work. But these are really very, very seldom cases or selected cases where this happens. Then we have processes where modification require permits. So what is this? If you manufacture parts for aircrafts, for example, then the whole process of manufacturing these parts is described And if you want to change the process, you need a permit from the aircraft manufacturer. And this is typically very complicated. So my recommendation is not to start for this, but start with easier aspects. Then I think it's important to say and repeat, if there is no knowledge on supplier side, it will not work. And also it will not work it will be very difficult if we have many parallel suppliers with short-term contracts. Chemical leasing needs a certain time to enable this collaboration. So if you change your supplier every 2 weeks and you might have 5 or 6 suppliers in parallel, it will be very difficult. We already have some solutions for several suppliers in parallel. This works. We have also sometimes solutions if the contracts are shorter, but if they are very short and you just decide week by week who will be your supplier for the coming week, then I wouldn't recommend to go on chemical leasing. But these are selected rare cases. The majority of processes is suitable for chemical leasing. And I think, and this is the last slide here, if you click, 20 years of experience show now that there are solutions to tackle all these challenges. We have, as already mentioned, a toolkit. We have a website, we have guidance, we have templates, we have a lot with which we can support you and which we want to use and which we would be glad if we can use it together with you to have good cases and important improvements in Uruguay. I think that's it for this presentation. I tried to save some 15-20 minutes. Juanita, I think we can use this for discussion. I can imagine that there are some questions, and I also tried to use some to save some time because Antje, that will speak later after me on sustainability, has also many very exciting messages. And so if there are not too many questions, Antje will have a little bit more time and we are flexible with the agenda. But that's it from me for the moment. Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias, Rainer, por tu interesante presentación. Como Jens les había dicho el día de hoy, hoy queremos discutir más y queremos implementar las ideas que ustedes tienen como parte de la discusión. Si ustedes quieren preguntar algo, lo que podemos hacer es que pueden alzar la mano y les podemos dar el espacio para que puedan hablar y discutir con Reinhard directamente. Entonces, si tienen alguna pregunta, por favor, alcen la manito y podemos empezar la discusión. No veo a nadie alzando la mano. Ah, sí, Laura Borgel. Dolores, si por favor pudieras permitirle darle la palabra a Laura.
Laura López.
Borgel.
Borgel.
Laura B-O-R-G-E-L. Gracias.
Ahí.
Perfecto.
Laura, ahí.
Laura, bienvenida a la discusión.
Ahora sí, ¿me escuchas?
Sí, te escuchamos perfecto.
Hola, gracias por la invitación. Bueno, desde Chile, quizás contarles que nuestro gran problema es un poco lo que se dijo en la presentación anterior, que es cuando existen normas o reglamentos o decretos que aunque la innovación nos diga que vamos en buen camino, cuesta mucho hacer entender a la parte regulatoria. Entonces, quizás la pregunta sería, ¿cómo acercarnos a estos estamentos gubernamentales que están más relacionados con las políticas públicas, de la importancia que tiene la innovación para buscar soluciones en todos los temas relacionados desde cambio climático, economía circular y así sucesivamente una serie de ideas que podrían en un momento dado salir. Lamentablemente, la ciencia muchas veces camina por un lado con mucha información y la parte regulatoria en los países, por lo menos de la región, en la visión que nosotros tenemos, y en especial de Chile, nos encontramos con verdaderos pantanos que cuesta mucho avanzar. Y muchas empresas hacen innovaciones, pero pequeñas, por temor a transgredir algo regulatorio que está tremendamente enmarcado. Gracias.
Yeah, thank you very much, Laura. A very good point and a very important discussion point. As you see, we had yesterday 3 government representatives taking part in the webinar and also clearly promoting chemical leasing. So it was a government of Uruguay, government of Germany, and government of Austria. The whole initiative was very much stimulated by governments. Switzerland, various countries around the world have joined hands in a so-called joint declaration on chemical leasing, where they said this is in line with what they want for sustainable chemistry. What they want to have chemicals used and applied in a more efficient way. Now, you are bringing up a very, very important point. If there are norms or restrictions that block innovation, it's difficult. But exactly here, this chemical leasing is one of these areas where there is a type of dialogue between the governments and the industry on how to enable improvements. The governments are participating in the process. The governments are supporting the process. The governments are investing public money to see this chemical leasing growing around the world. And therefore, they are open on this platform to exchange with industry. And if we realize there is some regulation here and there that blocks innovation, then it's a good opportunity and a good moment to improve and revise this existing legislation, because that's a new way also of dialogue between government and industry. But there is one important aspect that needs to be considered. And this is exactly what I'm saying when I said Antje talking about sustainability criteria will have some important messages. With this chemical leasing, you have a very powerful tool, but we need to be in particular careful about one aspect. We don't want to open the door for hazardous chemicals. Sometimes hazardous chemicals are very efficient, and we are talking about efficiency increase. But what we do not want is that we substitute an innocent chemical by a hazardous one in order to become more efficient. That would not be called chemical leasing. There had been an international working group consisting of governments, science, and industry. And this international working group agreed on sustainability criteria. And they said very clearly, it's not allowed to substitute chemicals by chemicals with a higher risk, because that would not fall under the sustainability. we don't want to have these hazardous chemicals inside. And this is important. But if we keep the hazardous chemicals out, or we reduce the amount of hazardous chemicals that are currently used with chemical leasing, then we are a good way. And then we can use this platform of chemical leasing, this common discussion forum, to also give the right messages to the regulators, to the government. Look, here is a regulation which blocks innovation, like you correctly said, and this should be revised in order to open the door for chemical leasing.
Muchas gracias, Reinhard. Laura, espero que... todavía tiene otra pregunta. Si quieres seguir discutiendo, sí, por favor, sigue.
No, solamente dar las gracias, porque yo creo que eso es lo que tenemos que hacer, empezar un poco a sembrar el concepto de chemical leasing, ¿ya? De la importancia que tiene y de que la innovación es algo parte del desarrollo de los países y que tiene muchas implicancias a futuro, no solo en mejorar estos aspectos, sino que también en hacer crecer al país a través de patentes o de productos nuevos, etcétera, pero que siempre sean más seguros. Eso es quizás un poco lo que nosotros como ONG técnica de Rita Chile es lo que propiciamos con los socios nuestros de empresa y que realmente nos gustaría a futuro poder ser parte de esta red y trabajar en conjunto y mover el sistema desde acá, desde la región. Gracias.
Muchas gracias a ti, Laura, por ser parte de esta discusión. Y como Jens decía, si quieres ser parte de la red, mándele un email y nos encantaría seguir discutiendo contigo sobre el tema. Bueno, Reinhard, tienes otra pregunta del chat y es de Vicente Plata. Él dice, "It seems to me that to implement this approach, it is extremely important to build mutual reliability through strong communication standards, independent evaluation performance reports, and very thorough descriptions of the services and the payment unit. Is this right?"
Yes. Very simple answer. You understood it perfectly. This is right. This is correct.
Okay, perfect. ¿Tienen alguien más alguna pregunta que quisiera hacerla en el chat o alzar la manito? Vicente, Dolores, si por favor podrías permitir que Vicente hiciera su pregunta. Muchas gracias.
It seems that, can you hear me right?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Thank you, Rahat, for your answer. I highlight this aspect of this proposal because sometimes we think that only through agreements and contracts we can move forward. And for what I've seen, it is very important before signing documents to build mutual reliability between the different parts that are going to participate, the service provider, the client, and also the third party that is going to report the achievements. And it is very important that in order, because this depends strongly on the mutual reliability, on the reports of the achievements that are being achieved, and also on the service that is being provided. Excuse me for my English, that it is not very good at all, but I think this is very important to highlight. The proposals is really interesting. It's a results-based approach. It is really very interesting, but those, let's say, soft aspects should be highlighted. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Vicente, for your intervention, and your English is perfect. I completely understood. Thank you very much. And I think you also have the proper understanding of the chemical leasing. Yes, I can just confirm all what you have said. And I tried also to highlight it's the spirit is essential, the spirit of new collaboration, also the exciting aspect that typically comes up in these teams. You can improve something, you learn from each other, and this creates innovation, this creates progress, and this is the key point. At the end, you find a proper contract to also bring this to the paper, but the spirit is essential, and I hope that this spirit also comes over in this webinar and comes over then in the further steps which we plan in Uruguay, because this is something, and it was said at the very beginning, what has the flavor of a revolution, but it's a revolution in the positive aspect, because at the end, at least from our case studies, we see real improvements. And thanks again for your intervention. I think you completely understood what is the key message here, and I'm looking forward to continue the contact and the collaboration with you.
¿Hay alguien más que le gustaría hacer una pregunta? En estos momentos no veo a nadie, pero nosotros tenemos una pregunta para ustedes. Y para ver si han entendido la teoría de chemical leasing. Una de las preguntas que tengo para ustedes es, ¿qué argumentos podría utilizar para convencer a una empresa de participar en chemical leasing? Si pudieran escribir sus comentarios en el chat, nos encantaría leer cuáles son los argumentos que ustedes utilizarían. Muchas gracias. Hola a todos. Espero que hayan tenido suficiente tiempo para hacerse un café o un mate. Antes de seguir con el siguiente punto, quiero leer una última respuesta que tuvimos hacia la pregunta que hice antes de la pausa. Y esta fue dada por Anónimo, dice, seguridad e higiene ocupacional. Esta sería otra forma de cómo convencer a proveedores. Bueno, muchas gracias. Entonces, ahora seguimos con la agenda del día de hoy. Y quiero darle la bienvenida a Antje Schwemberger. Antje, espero que haya pronunciado tu apellido correctamente. Es un placer tenerte aquí. Muchas gracias por ser parte de nuestro webinario. Antje va a hablar ahorita sobre los criterios de sostenibilidad. Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, Juanita. And you spelled it very well. Thank you. A very warm welcome from me too, from my side too, from Tyrol to our short input to the sustainability criteria for chemical leasing. My name is Antje, as you heard already, and I'm working with Reinhard in the field of chemical leasing since many years. I'm very thankful for having you here in this very exciting round in Uruguay. I have to say that I've never been to Uruguay. I'm very sad about this. Perhaps it could change in the future. I will give you a brief overview of the already mentioned required basics in the context of the development of sustainability, respectively of the world's view on sustainability in the context of climate change. As you already heard yesterday from Reinhard, the chemical leasing is already since many years a successful business model. And UNIDO, together with the Austrian and German environmental authorities, created a fantastic role model on a very early stage, a real lighthouse project. An international working group consisting of business, politics, and scientists created nearly 10 years ago the 5 basic requirements for a chemical leasing project. For sure, it is always in the interest of all involved partners that a performance-based business model, such as chemical leasing, follows high quality standards. Reinhard already mentioned many times today the point 3 on this file, where it makes clear that we don't want substitutions with a more hazardous substances than before. But we have 4 other points which are very relevant. I think the first one is clear because it's the reduction of the adverse impacts on environment, health, energy, and to resource consumption should be minimized. And throughout improved handling and storage, we can minimize the risks. And it always should be like a benefit for both partners, and this should be very clear in the whole project. The contract should contain the objective of continuous improvements and should enable a fair and transparent sharing of the benefits between the 2 partners. And for sure, to close the loop and to show what you really did, you need Kpis, and you need to monitor your efforts to show them to the world. Please, next slide. And of course, these now 5 mentioned criteria are still valid, but we have to look on them in a little bit a new context. The world did a great development since the times of creation of the criteria to have a bigger and a more holistic focus on the topic of sustainability. It's impressive illustrated among other initiatives in the 17 SDGs, the UN Sustainability Development Goals. They combining the 3 topics of sustainability. It's people, planet, and for sure, profit. And these are combined in 17 achievable goals for the world. And with chemical leasing projects, we pay into the goals. And mainly we are paying into the goals 12, 9, and 17. I think it's very easy to see that we are paying in 12 because it's sustainable consumption and production is about doing more and better with less. It is also about decoupling economic growth from environmental degradation, increasing resource efficiency, and promoting sustainable lifestyles. And all of these goals have clear described and detailed described sub-targets. For the goal 12, we have like 12.4, 0.5, 0.6, and also 12.8 is very relevant in a chemical leasing project. The target 12.8, for example, is support developing countries to strengthen their scientific and technological capacity to move towards more sustainable patterns of consumption and production. The goal 9, industry, innovation, and infrastructure. An inclusive and sustainable industrialization, together with innovation and infrastructure, can unleash dynamic and competitive economic forces that generate employment and income. And with a chemical leasing project, we are paying into the sub-targets 2, 3, 4, and one of my favorites, it's 9.5. It's enhancing scientific research, upgrade the technological capabilities of industrial sectors in all countries, in particular developing countries, including by 2030, encouraging innovation and substantially increasing the number of research and development workers by 1 million people, and public and private research and development spending. And I think after these 2 days, it's clear why we are being in goal 70. The SDGs can only be realized with a strong global partnership and cooperation. And this is what we are doing since 2 days, hopefully here. We have all these great partnerships and building up a network with ANI, UNIDO, ICS3, and now our consultants. And I'm looking forward for the next steps with Uruguay. But yes, of course, we already see it yesterday. We also been to other goals. It's a little bit depending on the affected applications and projects we are using chemical leasing. Yesterday, we had this great case studies of Brazil and of Colombia. And there it was clear that we also have a relevant positive impact to goal 6, clean water. And what I missed on my own SDG slide is the main part of today. With this webinar, we are hopefully contributing the goal 4, its quality education. Next slide, please. But to show these efforts in the right way and to create reliable role models, there has to be meaningful and comprehensible indicators. To help to find an efficient indicator system, the UNIDO created together with Germany and Austria, the Smart 5 tool, which should help to implement chemical leasing in companies, support them to collect relevant data to their efforts, measure and quantify the benefits, and offer an easy way to verify the criteria they met with their projects. The indicator list is related to the 5 main criteria we saw before, with some sub-criteria and the easy-to-use ticking box system for screening. Next slide, please. This innovative tool is the perfect basis to develop towards the state-of-the-art sustainability reporting system created from Global Reporting Initiative, which is the recommended reporting system of the UN and from many other authorities. The Global Reporting Initiative is a non-profit foundation and pursues a multi-stakeholder approach in its work. It was founded in 1997 by CERES, it's a coalition for environmentally responsible economies, and the United Nations Environmental Program, UNEP. And the interesting thing is this reporting initiative is for all organizations. It's not relevant your size, the industry, it can be for public sectors, it really is usable for everyone. Please, next slide. And we all know that sustainability KPI reporting will be a must-have for our customers, for authorities, for banks, insurances, and also, and that's very relevant, for our employees. We all will have to show our efforts and proven successes for ESG criteria in a trustful and in a transparent way. Let's have a short look on the easy tool, Smart 5. Always in comparison, I tried to compare it to the GRI document list. You can see here on this slide, it's the indicator with the GRI document number. I try to make it easier to look at this very crowded slide, I'm sorry about that, with the colored fields from the indicators to the 5 main criteria. And for the first criteria of less consumption, you can see there the typical environment, it's on the right side in the dark blue, environmental relevant KPIs. It's the emission to air, to water, etc. And also, and that's very relevant in these times, I think, the positive impact on our CO2 emission with a successful chemical leasing project. The screening, as I mentioned before, is organized as simple as possible to ensure easy and efficient handling. There are ticking boxes, for example, for the CO2 emission with decreasing, equal, or increasing. For sure, increasing would be not very positive, but still you can tick it here. You can show in seconds your positive impact to sustainability. And this system is consistent for all 5 criteria. We can look on other examples here on this slide. We have all the relevant things for improved handling. There we have like the worker accidents, if they are less severe, for example. We have like tolerance, concentrations for working places. Then we have the very relevant one, no substitution with higher risk. Here you can dig if it's decreased or increased. And on the left-hand side, we have the very relevant ones, the business KPIs. We can fill in here, like if we created new jobs through this project, if we have a better qualification of our employees, if we generated new business opportunities. And to close the loop again, we had this already, you need to show that you have the right KPIs and you are reporting them in a transparent way. With this relation between the SMART 5 indicators and the GRI numbers, I want to show that you are creating with the SMART 5 tool a perfect basis for your future sustainability reporting. And you don't have to do double work or double efforts. For the future, I'm sure there have to be some small revisions of the SMART 5 indicators to assure the usability for your future ESG reporting, to show more what we are doing in the whole world of sustainability. It means mainly a little bit bigger focus on the positive chemical leasing impact on reduction of greenhouse gases, on ensuring business ethics, and social responsibility. Please see these efforts as the basis for your successful communication and marketing, to gaining more business and to achieve resilience with a stable staff in these very, very volatile times. I hope I could help to give you a short overview on the great impact of a successful chemical leasing project on sustainability and on your company, on your position in the world of sustainability, and how the world is looking now on the relevance of sustainable reporting. Thank you very much. I'm open for questions.
Muchas gracias, Anti, a ti y por tu presentación en criterios de sostenibilidad. Si alguien tiene una pregunta, por favor háganla en el chat, digo en la sección de preguntas y respuestas, o si quieren, tenemos más o menos 5 minutos, pueden alzar la manito y pueden hablar directamente con Antie.
Perhaps it was too much input.
O de pronto lo presentaste tan claro que nadie tiene ninguna pregunta.
Thank you very much.
Sí. No veo ninguna pregunta en la sección de preguntas y respuestas, ni tampoco veo a nadie alzando la manito. No sé si queremos dar un minuto más y después seguir con el siguiente punto de la agenda. Perfecto. Entonces, en un minuto seguiremos con el siguiente punto.
Reinhard already opened his microphone. I think he's totally ready.
Sí, sí. Él ya está emocionada por seguir con el siguiente punto. que es normativas y estándares, qué se debe hacer y qué no se debe hacer. Entonces, Reinhard, por favor, sigue con tu presentación. Gracias, Anti, encantada de conocerte y gracias por estar con nosotros.
Yeah, thank you very much to Antje and to Juanita. So I will take the liberty to combine this agenda point directly with the next agenda point, what is next steps in Uruguay. And this will be very short. You have now been listening to chemical leasing presentations nearly 7 hours yesterday and today. I think you understand what are the benefits of the business model, why is it interesting. I think, and I hope you also got a flavor what is necessary to implement it. And this is the starting point, hopefully, of a common journey. So ISC 3 and this activity that is also financed by the German authorities has a clear intention to support Uruguay in getting case studies, in getting lighthouse projects, and starting to implement this business model in your country. And this defines the next steps. And Jens already said we should use this webinar to establish a network, to establish a group of companies that is interested, and we are ready to support you. I tried to show you the steps that are necessary. This can be a very quick process, an efficient process. It can be small teams depending on the size of your companies, or it can be bigger teams. We have implemented chemical leasing with companies in a size of 8 to 10 employees, and we have implemented it with very big international groups like Coca-Cola, like BASF, like Dow Chemicals, like General Motors, like Renault. So from very big to very small, implementation was always possible. And the next slides, in English, I said to this presentation, do's and don'ts. And if you click on the first slide, it's only really 4 slides, 4 small packages that are based on more than 20 years of experience, more than 200 case studies, more than 30 pages, and it's based on success and failure. It's based on enthusiasm, common spirit, and also on frustration, where we realized, okay, it does not work here. Why? And we want to share this with you, not in 30 minutes. We will even squeeze it in 10 to 15 minutes, because we think these are 4 presents, 4 packages for Uruguay, for you, which you can open and which you can enjoy, and hopefully which will provide huge triple win situations in your country. Let's go to the first package, what I would call dues for the supplier. And so if you are a chemical supplier, you should control together with your client the chemical consumption during the whole implementation phase of chemical leasing. You should be open to support your client, the user, with the handling of the chemical in order to reduce health risks, risks for accidents. There is sometimes this problem, and we have it quite now, with inflation and cost increases of raw material. So this can be solved with an index-based inclusion of these costs in the benefit-based payment. It's a little bit detailed, but it's important because the key messages for a supplier, you should earn more by providing less chemicals. As far as possible, you should use non-hazardous chemicals. If there is a substitution, it should be a substitution of more hazardous chemicals to less hazardous chemicals, not the other way around. Try to apply digitalization as much as possible. We see now many opportunities out of digitalization where a closer information exchange on the status of the process is possible. And this is another added value which can be created through chemical leasing. The next package addresses what you should not do, the don'ts if you're a supplier. So clear rules for liability and quality issues are necessary. Don't miss it. You need to establish very clearly the statement and ensure that the quality of the product is not reduced. You should avoid to have problems with confidentiality for the know-how of the user. So it's a must that you take care about the confidentiality issues of the user. You should avoid unclear definitions of use and its quantification. So sometimes this is very obvious. What is the use of a chemical? We were discussing this at various case studies. You remember yesterday I said, not the tons of powder coating, but the square meter of coated surface. You always need to think, what is the benefit of the chemical? Why are you using a chemical? You're not having a chemical because it's so nice to be the owner of this chemical. You want to have a certain benefit. If you apply an insecticide, you want to have an hectare of agricultural land free of insecticides or free of pests. That's the reason why you are using the chemical. And so you need to define the benefit. And if you do this in an unclear way, the whole model is under risk. This really needs to be elaborated. Then we did not yet touch this, but it is some of the details that are important, not to have any frustration. You should not miss rules for unjustified overconsumption. That's also an important point. If for what reason soever overconsumption of chemical occurs, there should be clear rules how to deal with it. And you should avoid short-term contracts. I said several times, if contracts are too short, then this collaboration will not work, then the spirit will not be developed, and then process optimization is not sufficient. On the next slide, we are opening a package for the user of the chemicals. And I understood most of the participants are users of chemicals. So for you, what you should do is you should offer the experts of the supplier access to the relevant processes of production. Only if you share experiences, data on your processes on a trustful basis, on a confidential basis with your supplier, improvements are possible. Try to identify what are the opportunities of digitalization for a more intensive collaboration. Today, with the internet, it's not difficult to exchange via data streams, status of the process, and this can help a lot to see red flags coming up and improving the parameters to make sure that processes are at their optimum. Common control of chemical consumption is an essential. You should include your research and development experts in the discussion with the supplier. In some of the talks, we touched innovation, and it became clear there is a lot of innovation in your countries. We should stimulate this innovation. We should include the research and development experts in the discussions on the process optimization, because it will be a stimulus for them also to develop innovative and more innovative solutions. And it's necessary that you train your accounting and purchase staff, because it's a little bit different, the accounting and purchase process, if you apply chemical leasing. Last package, what you should not do as a user. You should avoid to have no clear rules for confidentiality in intellectual property. This is essential that these are there. So if you miss them, these rules, you might enter into problems. My recommendation would be you should avoid contracts with the options for fine-tuning. Such a contract needs a certain flexibility, because it's based on a common spirit, on the spirit of collaboration, on the spirit of improvement. And so some fine-tuning might be necessary. This is an experience of these case studies. After 3 months, you see a little bit more, okay, these are the added values, more than expected. And then the contract might need to be adjusted. Just keep this option. Avoid to have no clear rules for liability and quality issues. I repeat it again and again. Quality is essential. And in order to have good trust, you need good rules for liability. You also should avoid to have unclear definition of benefit and its quantification. This is the same what is true for the supplier, it's also true for the user. And again, it's also true, you should avoid short-term contracts, because if contracts are too short, there is no sufficient time to develop the model. Now, when I said I would like to combine this topic with the topic next steps, then several times we already said it's an invitation for all of you to join the network, to make use of the sharing of international experiences. And as said, it takes a little bit of time to establish this process optimization. So my suggestion would be, let's take the momentum of this webinar. I invite you to think about your processes and come back to us in the next weeks. Describe your case, just give us your contact detail, and we will have a bilateral discussion with you and try to see whether this would be a nice implementation case for Uruguay. We would love to go in the area of biocides, of disinfectants, addressing hospitals, addressing kitchen, addressing hotels, disinfection, whatever, but we are also prepared to go to other chemicals, whether it's coating, whether it's cleaning, whether it's agrochemicals, whether it's fertilizers. There are lots of possibilities, and we just need to kick off the process. And this is really a standing invitation of the ISC3 team, that you just need to contact us, and then we will be there and hope to support you. And maybe in half a year, when it's spring in Uruguay and it's autumn in Europe, then we will come over to a personal workshop, hopefully, see your successful cases and continue this discussion. I think that's it from my side. I very much enjoyed sharing slides, sharing discussion with you, and I give now the floor back to Juanita and Jens for the closure and also for further remarks from your side.
Muchas gracias, Reinhard, por tu presentación, y muchas gracias por todo lo que has hecho y nos has enseñado estos 2 días en el webinario. Ahora vamos a tener el último punto del día de hoy de nuestra agenda, que es el cierre. Jens, por favor, si quieres decir algunas palabras.
Okay, thanks, Juanita. Well, first of all, thanks to the three speakers of today. Reinhard gave us a lot of extra information about chemical leasing, especially the do's and don'ts of chemical leasing. Antje focused on the sustainability criteria and made a link to the Sustainable Development Goals and talked about sustainable reporting. Very interesting. And Louise gave us a lot of additional examples of chemical leasing. So that was a really interesting day. The only thing I would like to say as a last step is to repeat what Reinhard said, that we are available to help any users or producers of biocides or other chemicals to give advisory or to have a discussion, or even if you don't really know what to do, you can just send me an email and we will add you to our mailing list and keep you informed. So yeah, don't hesitate to share your contact details with us, and you can be part of our network. Then I would like to thank as well all the other people who co-organized this, the translators. They did a really good job. Diana, who today did all the technical sharing of all the presentations. Everyone at ANI for inviting everyone, and at the Basel Center for sharing this invitation with everyone in the network, and of course Juanita for moderating those 2 days. Thank you very much. And yeah, for the rest, I don't have anything to say. So maybe we can do a last round of questions. So if anyone wants to ask anything in the group, this is your last chance. And otherwise, I hope to see everyone again soon, maybe in Uruguay live or in another virtual format.
Sí, tenemos unos cuantos minutos más. Si alguien quiere hacer alguna pregunta o quiere vincularse con el IS3, por favor escríbanos un email. Jens ha puesto su email en el chat. Y si no hay más preguntas, también quiero dar las gracias a todos ustedes por atender al webinario. Un gusto conocerlos. Y por favor, si tienen cualquier otra pregunta, como les decía, escríbanos un email a Jens o a mí. También quiero agradecerle a Reinhard por todo su trabajo. Excelente tus presentaciones, Reinhard, y también a todos los otros exponentes que fueron parte del día de hoy y parte del día de ayer. Y por supuesto, también quiero agradecerle a ANI, la Agencia Nacional de Investigación e Innovación, y al Centro Coordinador del Convenio de Basileo y Centro Regional del Convenio de Estocolmo. Muchas gracias por la cooperación. Nos encantó trabajar con ustedes y creo que en estos 2 días se vio el trabajo que todos nosotros pusimos juntos para hacer este evento. No sé si alguien de ustedes quiere decir unas palabras antes de cerrar el webinario. Bueno, si no hay ninguna más palabras que decir, me despido de todos ustedes. Que tengan una buena tarde. Aquí en Alemania es de noche, entonces espero volver a hablar con ustedes sobre Biocide Leasing, y cualquier cosa nos mandan un email. Muchas gracias por todo y espero verlos pronto.